hundreds, and that was during the reign of James V. And this is where Mary Queen of Scots actually spent some of her very first adult years. So you can see there, you see the central boxes and the fountain, which actually works when you have a royal presence. It's the only time that it does work is when there's a royal presence.
Look at that railing.
Now we're going to go round the back about here, and when we get round here, the building on the right, the one with the post around the roof, that's called Dynamic Air. That was opened in the year 2000, and it tells the story of our planet Earth. If you go over to your left, you'll see all the little tents, the marquees. That's the area which will be used by the games this coming weekend, the gathering of the Highland clans. That's the area over to our right now. And then on the left-hand side, the new Parliament building, it cost over, it was to cost £40 million. It ended up costing 411 million. And it was designed by a Spanish architect, a chap called Eric Morales. And he died before it was finished.
Good for him.
I have to add, though, he died naturally. And the building is polished concrete, stainless steel and wood. It is finished. This is supposed to represent trees. What you see here, front. That's the wood parts. And then you have little parts on the wall, which in dark grey, that's Dublin granite. We don't quite know what that was meant to be because the architect left no indication, so they've had to guess. There's been two thoughts on it. The general consensus is they represent hair dryers.
I thought it was like
the other one is the curtains, but never mind, the hair dryers is much nicer. This wall here is called the Canongate wall, this concrete wall here. This is the Royal Mile we've come on to. This is the bottom of that hill called the Canongate. The Speaker's building is here on the left, that's the offices, and then the private offices of the Members of Parliament, which is next to that. This part of the Royal Mile originally would have been quite open. We haven't reached where the old town officially began. Now this area would have been occupied by the Augustinians, the monks. That's why it's called the Canon's Gate. The word gate is the old word for step. This is where the monks would have walked back and forwards. There's a church coming up on the right. This was built in the 1680s. This is the church the Queen comes privately to. And if you look at a building on the left-hand side and there's one on the right-hand side, these were built at the end of the 1500s. This is the original stonework that you see there. And on the right-hand side between the two shops, you'll see a crest over the door, and that is the crest of the leather workers. They had their guild hall there at one time. And then when we get just a wee bit further up the hill here, we're going to come to a junction, and at the traffic lights, and this is where the old town of Edinburgh officially began. There would have been a wall around the south side of the city, and of course it needed gates to people to get in and out, and one of those gates was located just where the traffic lights are now. Now in the old town, in those earlier times, people who couldn't read or write, they were told if they came to this gate and came through it without permission, what would happen to them, they would fall off the end of the world and they would never be seen again. Now when we go across the junction next here, if you look to the left there's a pub. It's called the World's End, and that's because of that old legend of the
Oh, yay.
on the right hand side,
that's right.
Outside staircase here. This white coloured building, the old building, is where once a minister called John Knox lived, and he was one of the ministers who brought the Presbyterian faith into the country in those mid-1500s, and he died in 1572. And that little well you see on the right here, there was 4 of those, and these were the only source of fresh water.
I bet you did.
And on the left-hand side, you've got the birthplace of Harry Potter. This little cafe right on my left here, and that's where Harry Potter first came into existence. That's where J.K. Rowling wrote her very first Harry Potter books. Some of them, the first books. And then, as we turn left up onto the Lawn Market, just in a second here, top of the Royal Mile. There's a pub across the road called Deacon Brodie's Tavern. Refers to a man called William Brodie, and he lived in the middle of the 1700s. He was a cabinet maker by trade. He was also a councillor in Gallows. That's the building on the right. That's the pub named after him. And that's a pen on the right, that big entrance, that's what we call a pen. Left hand side we're building a statue of what William Brodie looked like, and then if you look to the right, you see a building there, and that's called Gladstone's Land, and that was a building of the early 1600s. That's what the housing of this area would have looked like at that time. This is taking us up onto the castle esplanade. This is where we get off the coach. This is where